Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And George Pickens is saying all the right things in Dallas. What else would you expect? George Pickens comes out today and says he admits he did not want to be traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he did not ask for a trade. But let's listen to George say all the right things. This will last a very short period of time. Knowing George's track record, let's let him speak for himself. Then we'll go from there. George Pickens confirms he didn't ask Steelers for a trade. Joseph Hoyt, I guess this is a Cowboys reporter. I asked Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens if he ever requested a trade from Pittsburgh. He said he didn't. Super proud and glad to be here. He reiterated often that he's excited to be in Dallas and to help build a winning culture. Really, George? You had 4 years to build that winning culture with the Steelers. And what happened? You made it all about you. What did you and your dad do? You and your dad blamed the city of Pittsburgh, Coach Tomlin, the team, everybody else for your narcissistic, childish behavior. But of course, I mean, this is what I expect him to say. But it just, when I read something like this, I just laugh. Yeah, build a winning culture. Is that by making these types of gestures every time you make a big play and getting a 15-yard penalty, being late for practice, showing up late for games, fighting with fans in the stands, not blocking on the perimeter for your running backs, walking off the field during interceptions? Is that a winning culture, George? Is that the winning attitude you're bringing to the Dallas Cowboys? Pickens has no long-term financial security as one of the top young receivers in the league, so it wouldn't have been overly surprising if he did request a trade. His lack of trade request isn't surprising, given some recent reporting by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, which stated Pickens felt a sense of loyalty to Mike Tomlin and liked being with the Steelers. No, he liked being with Coach Tomlin because Coach Tomlin always gave him the benefit of the doubt, was always trying to be positive. He didn't just write him off immediately when he should have written him off more than 2 years ago. So how long do you think this act is going to last in Dallas, George? If Coach Tomlin can't do something with you, who can? Coach Tomlin is known for that. Coach Tomlin is known for rocking little babies like George Pickens, putting a Bobby in their mouth, giving them some milk, and treating them like a little baby. Right, George? Now you're not going to get that in Dallas. I predict that George Pickens will be out of the league, out of the National Football League in less than 3 years. Pickens felt a sense of loyalty to Mike Tomlin, liked being with the Steelers. Of course he did. They put up with all his garbage. Despite potentially mulling a trade request at some point this offseason, Fowler stated that he never did. Now Pickens has confirmed that. There is also a report from Clarence Hill Jr., which indicates Pickens isn't looking for an extension this offseason, and he said similar in this press conference. I'm not thinking about contract talk, Pickens said via Patrick Walker and X. I'm worried about coming here and trying to help build a winning culture. Oh, you know what, George? I'd love to know your definition of winning culture because it could be pretty interesting. You know, I think it's a little, I might be reading into this a little bit too much, but Pickens isn't looking for an extension this offseason, and he said similar in this press conference. Knowing how George Pickens is literally insane, do you think, if he shows that he can behave this year with the Cowboys, that he might want to go back to the Steelers next year? I could picture him doing that. This is how crazy he is. This is a guy that just doesn't get it. He'll never get it. So you had the opportunity of a lifetime with the Steelers. You could have got the money that DK Metcalf got. You forced the Steelers to trade you. You forced the Steelers to give somebody else the money. You get told to take a walk, and probably in George's delusional mind, he really thinks, I'll go back to the Steelers next year. I'll prove this year I know how to act. It's you will never wear the black and gold. You know, I shouldn't say never, but I can picture George Pickens trying to pull a stunt like that. So racist Ryan Clark, he never disappoints. You know, it's a absolute racist Ryan Clark should be banned from the Steelers for all his race baiting and garbage. Ryan Clark walks back, comments about Mike Tomlin, Steelers after George Pickens trade. The Steelers' decision to trade George Pickens elicited strong reactions, including from former players like Ryan Clark, now in the media, racist Ryan Clark that is, with a large platform, including a regular television appearances. He says a lot, and not always with a great depth of thought. Yeah, you could say that again. Yesterday marked one of those days. He found, upon reflection later in the day, I'm disappointed in myself, Clark said in a video shared on X regarding his reaction to the Steelers trading Pickens. Immediately, my groupthink and my thought was, damn, so talented, they must be tired of dealing with his personality. You know what? You know what, racist Ryan Clark? For once, I'm going to agree with you. That's the absolute truth. Coach Tomlin and the Steelers got tired of George Pickens' attitude and his garbage. Let's listen to racist Ryan Clark tell us himself. This ought to be interesting. He never disappoints.
I'm disappointed in myself today. This morning, I wasn't supposed to work on Get Up, but I found out that George Pickens was going to be traded to the Dallas Cowboys. And immediately, my groupthink and my thought was, damn, somebody so talented, they must be tired of dealing with a personality. And I fell into the same thing that all the people who actually don't know this kid.
Oh, my God. You know what, Ryan Clark? So all his teammates in the locker room, and the majority of the locker room is black. And I have to say that, you know why? Because racist Ryan Clark makes everything about race. He's a good kid. No, he's not. So we're not talking about criminality. We're not talking about off the field. We're talking about in football circles. And in football circles, George Pickens is a total piece of garbage, where it's all about him. His own teammates couldn't stand him. 55 other grown men couldn't stand George Pickens. Racist Ryan Clark? But hey, no, he's a good kid. Why is he a good kid, Ryan? Why? Why is he a good kid? I know the exact reason why you're saying that. Because I'm sure if he was quite a bit paler, you'd have a different opinion. But that's what racist Ryan Clark does and who he is as a person.
Falls into. And I also felt like I slighted George and I slighted Mike T. Mike T, who doesn't run away from coaching. Mike T, who doesn't run away from grooming. Mike T, who doesn't run away from bringing players along. It almost was like I said he gave up on a player. And George Pickens, who I've talked to, I've had conversations, I've been around, someone who does have a good spirit, someone who does have good energy, somebody who honestly is a good dude.
Good spirit, good energy, good dude. Really, Ryan? Well, maybe we should go in the Steelers locker room and interview the players, and I'm sure they would have a different opinion than racist Ryan Clark. And we all know why he's saying good spirit, good energy. Just, Ryan, you know what you need to do? Since you suck at your job and you're a racist and a liar and a race baiter and a divider, you know what you should do? You should go be a psychic. You should do tarot cards or something with the energy. What's your energy, Ryan? Besides being a racist and a liar?
Now, there are things that when you watch the film or when you watch the games, you have to be able to assess and say that can't happen. You have to be able to assess and say you can't do those things and be a leader. You can't do those things and continue to help a team to build. But for me to jump to the conclusion right away, that was the reason he's no longer there, that's unfair to the organization I love and to a player I admire. I mean, what if it's because DK's there now and you paid him $100+ million and now you also can't pay George? Or who's going to actually get the ball to both of these men? And who's the quarterback going to be? And so when I got a chance to sit down and sort of recalibrate what I thought, this is a football move. This is a business decision. This isn't about George Pickens being too difficult to coach or Coach Tomlin running from coaching.
Oh, here we go. Ryan, I really wish you would leave Coach Tomlin's name out of your mouth. I'm sure, you think you're friends with him. Deep down, I would probably think Coach Tomlin can't stand you, but that's a whole different video. He's not a good person, George, at all. Was it a business decision? Yeah, it's always a business decision. But George Pickens' attitude, antics, antisocial behavior, anti-team, the 55 other men in the locker room that couldn't stand him. That's why he's not a Steeler anymore. They could have made it work. He was probably going to get the money that DK got. You never know. They could have kept him probably. But when racist Ryan Clark says, Coach Tomlin, I slated Coach Tomlin by saying Coach Tomlin gave up. Coach Tomlin tried to work with George Pickens for 4 years. And at a certain point, he does have to say to himself, you know what? I'm done. I had it with this garbage. And that's what Coach Tomlin did. Coach Tomlin did what's best for the organization, the city of Pittsburgh, himself, his own career. George Pickens has nobody to blame but himself. But I wouldn't expect anything else from racist Ryan Clark. I'm sure when he talks about Aaron Rodgers or some other Caucasianoid player, this wouldn't be the same type of love or vibe or feeling. I have to go there because this is who racist Ryan Clark is. I make no apologies. I can't stand racist Ryan Clark. Can't stand him. And Ryan, if you ever see this video, instead of trying to fight old white men that are old enough to be your granddad, like Skip Bayless and Mad Dog Russo, you're a tough guy, and you're going to pull up, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. Listen, we could do celebrity boxing where you're the celebrity. I'm your biggest hater. We could do it at training camp. We could do it wherever you want. You could take the money, donate it to the people of Pittsburgh. I just want to beat you up for 5 rounds. I want to make Ryan Clark a different human being by the time I get done with him. So to say that I dislike Ryan Clark is an understatement. This is how toxic George Pickens was to the locker room, the entire locker room, and the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Brooke Pryor writes that Steelers felt relief after finalizing George Pickens' trade. Oh, boy. Asked yesterday on ESPN what the general feeling was inside the Steelers facility after trading Pickens, Pryor said, it's relief. And I think that's because this is a team that knew a move like this could happen. They had discussed the potential for a George Pickens trade prior to the draft. They were listening to calls. Obviously, they tabled it during the draft. And then it came together last night and was finalized this morning. This is an organization that knows how talented George Pickens is, but that calculus changed. Pryor added that the Steelers are not panicking after losing a top receiver. After all, it wouldn't make any sense to panic since they made the choice to trade him. If doing so would have sent them into a panic, then they obviously made the wrong choice. Let's hear from a Pittsburgh Steelers insider, Brooke Pryor, why George Pickens was traded.
24 minutes of NFL Live. From everybody that has talked about George Pickens, he is supremely talented. Supremely talented. So why did he get traded for a 3rd-round pick, and why a team like the Steelers are moving on? Let's bring in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, who covers this team. So, again, we talk about the talent, 1st-round talent, but he didn't go in the 1st round 3 years ago. And this Steelers team needs talent on the offensive side. So why were they willing to move on from him now?
Well, Kevin, it's simple. He was creating more headaches for his own team than he was creating for opposing defenses. I think Lewis hit the nail on the head earlier that when Mike Tomlin is ready to move on from you, there's a lot of red flags for you as a player. And with George Pickens, we saw those in the form of his sideline demonstrations, throwing the helmet, yelling at teammates, some of his celebrations on the field, getting flagged for unsportsmanlike penalties, celebrating a big catch. All of those things created a bigger headache than the big-time plays that he was also making. And look, the Steelers have a history of making these cost-benefit analyses and deciding that some of these really supremely talented wide receivers are not worth the headache. Let's look at their recent history of guys they've traded away. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, and now George Pickens. There's a common denominator there. It's not the talent, it's everything else that made the Steelers say, okay, he could be coming up for a contract extension this summer. Things could get messy with a potential holdout, hold in. It's better to move on now. We've got DK Metcalf. We're paying him big money. Let's get what we can out of George Pickens, ship him to Dallas, get a return on that, and move forward as an organization.
Yeah, they made that offseason trade with the Seahawks before the draft, sending a 2nd-round pick and then giving Metcalf that extension. So you have a true number 1, no doubt about it. It's just what happens afterwards. What's the general feeling in the building right now after this move?
Kevin, it's relief. And I think that's because this is a team that knew a move like this could happen. They had discussed the potential for a George Pickens trade prior to the draft. They were listening to calls, obviously tabled it during the draft, and then it came together last night and was finalized this morning. This is an organization that knows how talented George Pickens is, but that calculus changed, and they are not panicking because they've just lost a top wide receiver. That's kind of been their MO all offseason, that while there seems to be a lot of panic about the Steelers from outside the organization, that's not the feeling inside the building, and that even extends to Aaron Rodgers, who, as we know, has yet to make a decision. But in conversations I've had with people in the building, they still feel confident that he's eventually going to land.
There you go. You heard it from Brooke Pryor's mouth. The Pittsburgh Steelers are relieved to get rid of George Pickens. Could you imagine that? It's just, man, one guy taking an entire organization hostage, but racist Ryan Clark, he's a great guy. He's a good kid. Good energy. Yeah, what energy is that, Ryan? What energy is that? You know, Ryan, we all know why you say these things. We're not dumb, Ryan. You would like for us to all believe that every word that comes out of your mouth is true, and we're all going to fall for your garbage, but we all know what George Pickens is. He's a selfish, narcissistic, immature baby that will be out of the league in less than 3 years. Good luck, George, in Dallas. I wish you the best. You fit perfectly in down there in Jerry World, and I just thank God every day you're no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler. Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2.